Blind Citizens Australia proudly presents the An Eye to the Future Business Workshop Series. Creating Accessible and Inclusive Workplace Cultures. Hosted by Blind Citizens Australia.
So let's begin, as always, with our acknowledgement to country. So I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands that we are all coming from today for this physically dispersed workshop. I am coming to you from the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia. As we gather for this physically dispersed workshop, let us take a moment to reflect upon the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we gather today. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Claire and I'm Project Officer with An Eye to the Future. With us today, as mentioned, we have my colleague Maddie, who is also a Project Officer with An Eye to the Future. We have Bettina, who is the Project Manager, and Natasha, our Business Support. And An Eye to the Future is an initiative from Blind Citizens Australia that recognises the career potential of people who are blind or vision impaired. The initiative has been made possible by a funding grant from the Department of Social Services. We support job seekers with job readiness, including the job search, resume and cover letter preparation, interview preparation, and we also offer one-to-one discussions and mentoring throughout the employment process. We also work very closely with employers like you, providing education and awareness workshops and tailored training sessions to support employers to create those accessible and inclusive workplace cultures and practices. This includes helping employers to think differently about their recruitment and employment processes, and providing advice and guidance on hiring someone who is blind or vision impaired in their workplace. Once a person who is blind or vision impaired has employment, we can continue our support for both employer and employee as they settle into the workplace. In today's workshop, we are going to explore considerations and strategies for creating accessible and inclusive workplace cultures for people who are blind or vision impaired. This is the third and final workshop in a series of 3, and we do invite you to view our previous workshops on our Eye to the Future YouTube channel. Okay, so just before we get started, we will share a poll for you to complete that asks about your current knowledge base on this particular topic. And we will run another poll at the end of the workshop to see if there's been a change in your confidence and knowledge. It's literally just a 1 question with multiple choice answer, and responses will be anonymous. So we're just administering the poll now. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we're just going to end that poll now.
Just had a few people jump into the meeting. Welcome to the few people who just came in, Mary and Tanya. We're just running a poll at the moment that should be on your screen. If you could just respond with how you rate your knowledge and confidence in creating accessible and inclusive recruitment practices, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Ending the poll now. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Maddie. Okay, so let's start just by understanding a little bit about inclusion in the workplace. So really, before you can build an inclusive workplace culture, it's essential to understand what inclusivity really means. Inclusion goes beyond diversity. It means creating an environment where all employees, regardless of their ability and background, feel valued, respected, and have an equal opportunity to thrive. It's really important to take the time to educate yourself and your team on the concepts of inclusivity and unconscious bias. And we hope that this workshop can help in that way. So we're going to move to slide 2 now. This slideshow is really just a complementary visual for what we're discussing anyway. So, okay, so on slide 2, we talk about a cultural add versus a cultural fit. So the first thing we are going to talk about is this concept of cultural fit versus cultural add. And I just wanted to ask, virtual hands up, if you have heard of the term cultural add before. So if you have, just raise your virtual hand. Okay.
Looking like it's a new concept for a lot of people, Claire.
Thanks, Maddie. So I'm sure that we have all heard the term cultural fit, and we are, and people saying we're looking for someone who is a cultural fit. And in theory, hiring for cultural fit sounds like a good idea. In practice, it often leads to affinity bias, with interviewers favoring candidates similar to themselves. With this bias, you are likely to get an organization that has people who are similar age, interests, culture, and other factors that can inhibit new ways of thinking, new business growth, or challenge the status quo. Without bringing in candidates with different perspectives, your culture can't evolve. That's why many companies are now looking for people who can add to and expand their culture, and looking for ways to diversify their organization and make an inclusive workplace for all employees. This is a movement that we fully support, and we assume that since you're here, you do too. In today's session, we hope to share some strategies and insights to help you along the way to creating an inclusive workplace culture, keeping in mind that cultural add concept. So we're going to move to slide 3 and talk a little bit about inclusion in the workplace. So here's some practical considerations you can start thinking about today. One thing to think about is leadership commitment. So inclusive cultures really start at the top. Leadership commitment is essential. Leaders must not only advocate for inclusivity, but also embody it in their actions. They really set the tone for the organization. So make sure your leadership team is committed to diversity and inclusion. And this will flow down to all employees. And it's really about turning up and being open to change. So starting and leading conversations about what inclusion looks like in your particular workplace. Being open to what is good and what needs work, identifying what you can influence in your team and commit to action. Another consideration is having those clear inclusion policies in the workplace. So develop and communicate clear inclusion policies, and these policies should address various aspects, including hiring practices, promotion opportunities, and equal pay for equal work. Make sure your employees are aware of these policies and they know how to report any concerns. Review your organization's policies and benefits to ensure they continue to cater for those diverse needs within your workforce. These policies can go a long way in making employees feel valued. Maybe just another round of kind of virtual hands up if you feel your workplace could potentially do more in creating robust inclusion policies. And I'll just ask Maddie to feed back on that.
Yeah, we've got 2 hands up at the moment, 3, 4. There's more we can be doing, 5, 6.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. You can take your hands down.
So another consideration is around those diverse hiring practices. So ensuring your hiring practices are unbiased and focused on selecting the best candidates based on their skills and qualifications. One thing you could consider is removing candidates' details from applications in the screening process to reduce unconscious bias. Diverse interview panels can also help to ensure a fair selection process. To overcome unconscious bias, it really starts by asking yourself, are you making assumptions? Challenge your thinking and be aware of what you bring. Pay attention to this and be purposeful in parking your bias. Another consideration is around inclusive onboarding. So making sure your onboarding process is designed with accessibility in mind. Consider new ways of delivering the same information to new employees and assign mentors or buddies to help them navigate their new workplace and connect with their colleagues. Think about employee training. Offer diversity and inclusion training for all employees. These programs can help employees recognize and address biases and promote understanding and empathy within the workplace. In this training, make sure there is a strong emphasis on seeking out other people's voices. You can do this by making sure that your voice, or perhaps another voice and experience, is not the most dominant in the room. It's about creating a safe space for conversation and validation. Encourage that diversity of thought and don't just jump in with a solution. It comes with active listening. Put your hands up again if you feel your workplace, departments, and teams could benefit from some additional training in diversity and inclusion. And again, I'll pass over to Maddie to field those.
Yeah, we've got 4 so far. 5, they're coming up fast. Thank you so much, guys. 6, 7. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, another consideration is around that continuous open communication. So encourage open and honest communication. A way that you could do this, and has been done before, is to create forums for employees to discuss inclusivity issues, to share experiences, and propose solutions. Feedback really is invaluable in building an inclusive workplace culture. Make sure that these conversations are inclusive from the beginning. So think about, can everybody contribute in a way that suits them? Do people feel safe to be honest and heard? Think about providing several ways for people to contribute and be active in seeking out everybody's opinion. And a final consideration in this first part of the workshop is around that continuous learning. So be mindful that inclusion really is an ongoing journey. It's important to stay informed about current trends and best practices in diversity and inclusion. Be open to evolving your strategies as the workplace and society changes. Embracing diversity of ability, background, thought, and experience can contribute so much to the culture of your workplace. Importantly, doing so will improve the quality of the work you do. After all, our work and our workforce should reflect the community we serve. So just keeping what we've just discussed here in mind, we are now going to consider inclusive cultures in the specific context of blindness and vision impairment. And I'm going to hand over now to Maddie to talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Claire. So we're going to do a little bit of experiential learning, and we'll move over to slide 4, inclusive and accessible team meetings. We find that one of the most powerful ways to deliver awareness training in workshops is to walk you through a real-world scenario. Before we get into our scenario, just reflect on these questions for a moment. When you walk into a meeting, how do you know who is in the room with you? When the meeting starts, how do you know who is present and where they're sitting in the room? How do you know what the presenter is referring to when they say, look over here, or here is, or looking at figure 1? The answer is likely sight. So let's assume you've arrived 5 minutes early for a team meeting. You see the guest presenter is standing at the front of the room. They say hello to you and shake your hand. You can see Jack, your colleague, who walks in with Adam, another colleague, and they're having a conversation as they walk in. Maybe they acknowledge you with a nod or a smile or a wave as they take their seat. And you can see the slides or the presentation live on the screen, maybe even the pointer that the presenter uses throughout the presentation to circle images, tables, or graphs on the screen. So now let's take these visual cues away, and we're going to walk you through some real-world scenario from the perspective of someone who's blind or vision impaired. So now, please close your eyes and let's walk through 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. You arrive at a team meeting 5 minutes early and make your way to your seat. The presenter says hello and extends their hand for a handshake, but you do not see them extend their hand, so you miss the opportunity. You received the email invite for this meeting. However, no additional information about the content that may be presented on the screen has been provided. Your colleagues start to arrive and you can hear them sitting down nearby, but you're unsure who it is yet. 2 people walk in talking. You think it might be Jack and Adam, but you're not confident enough about that to say hello yet. The meeting commences and the presenter makes references to the data shown on the screen in figure 1. You have not seen figure 1 and you've not had the opportunity to access this information prior to the meeting. The presenter asks the team to comment and share ideas on the information presented, but you've missed key information, so you don't feel confident to contribute. That's scenario 1. Keeping your eyes closed, we're going to walk through scenario 2. You arrive 5 minutes before the meeting, scheduled start time, and you take your seat. You feel prepared for the meeting because the facilitator sent the presentation, including text to describe images and figures, and pre-reading prior to the meeting in an accessible format. When you arrive, the presenter greets you, introduces themselves, and you extend your hand for a handshake. They can see this gesture and you shake hands. One of your colleagues has arrived before you, and as you take your seat, they say, "Hi, it's Sally," and they're sitting opposite you. 2 more people walk in. They say hi to you and introduce themselves as Jack and Adam. As they take their seats, you say hello back and note that they are sitting to your left. At the beginning of the meeting, a roll call is facilitated where we go around the room and note who is present in the meeting. Maddie, Claire, Sally, Adam, Jack. Now you, as a person with no visual cues, knows who is present and where your colleagues are in relation to you. The meeting starts and the presenter describes visual information as they go along, including commenting on the change of slide. For example, moving to slide 4 now. And their table figures. On the screen is figure 1. This figure shows that our sales have dropped in the last quarter compared to the rest of the year. As the presentation and pre-reading was sent ahead of time, you can follow along using your technology and feel prepared to actively contribute to the meeting. Okay, so you can open your eyes now if you close them down, and let's just take a moment here to note some of the simple but very effective inclusive practices for a person who is blind or vision impaired that we used in the second scenario. Number 1 was access to information ahead of time. This allows a person who is blind or vision impaired to follow along in meetings and make contributions on the same basis as their colleagues. Introductions with names. Approaching and introducing yourself with your name lets a person who is blind or vision impaired know who they are interacting with. Roll calls. These can take literally less than a minute in most cases and provide a person who's blind or vision impaired with essential information. Who is present, who is absent. They know who they will be communicating and working with in the meeting. Audio description. Simply put, audio description is commenting on or describing visual information. This allows a person who's blind or vision impaired to access visual information and cues at the same time as their colleague. Assistive technology. People who are blind or vision impaired can use assistive technology to access information, and in this scenario, including presentations and pre-reading on their device. So that's talking you through some scenarios and practices that maybe you can reflect on and take into your workplace today, tomorrow. Maybe you're already doing these things, which is wonderful. We'll move on to session 3 now, considerations and strategies for people who are blind or vision impaired. So moving on to slide 5, please, Natasha, blindness and vision impairment. Research by Vision 2020 Australia suggests that around 840,000 Australians are currently living with vision loss, and that by 2030, this could exceed 1.4 million. When it comes to blindness and vision impairment, it could be anyone, and with an aging population, this prevalence is expected to increase. It's not only related to age. Vision impairment and blindness could onset at any age. As an example, I was 29 when my vision impairment onset. Vision impairment can be congenital, that is, you're born with it or acquired, or through injury and illness. I didn't say that sentence very well. Let me try that again. Vision impairment can be congenital, that is, you're born with it, or it can be acquired through injury or illness, and sometimes degenerative, which means it can change over time. People who are blind or vision impaired are underrepresented in the workforce. With the expected increase in prevalence over the next 10 years, we want to share some strategies with you so that you, as a colleague, team leader, or decision maker, feel more confident in these interactions, whether it be in the workplace or in the community. So we'll move to slide 6 now, wayfinding and sighted guiding. While some people may not require assistance at all, others might prefer to take your arm or have their dog guide follow you. In any case, the best thing to do is to introduce yourself and ask the person if they would like assistance. Moving on to slide 7, inclusive and accessible recruitment practices. With the knowledge you have now, let's talk about inclusive recruitment practices. Is your organisation encouraging people with disability to apply for roles? Let's think about your website. Is your website job advert accessible? The first introduction to your organisation is often through your website. If these virtual spaces are not compatible with assistive technology like screen readers, then people who are blind or vision impaired can't access information about your organisation. Your job adverts. Are your job adverts encouraging people who are blind or vision impaired to apply? For instance, do you include a statement about your organisation's values on inclusion and diversity in the workplace? Do you offer a point of contact in your job advert for people to request adjustments on the application process if needed? And checking that your job advert is inclusive and accurately reflects your business needs. For instance, instead of driver's license required, you could simply state travel required. People who are blind or vision impaired can use different supports to meet travel requirements outside of the driver's license. Applications. What is your process for submitting applications? Do you ask candidates to complete online forms, for instance? Some people who are blind or vision impaired may find it more accessible to provide a resume and cover letter by email rather than in an inbuilt application form. Thinking about interviews. When conducting face-to-face interviews, are there clear instructions on wayfinding into the building and the office space required? For example, entry is on level 1. Take the stairs, lift or elevator to level 1 and then turn right. Our office is the 3rd door along. Have you considered an accessible location within your office to conduct the interview? For example, a room close to the office entrance. This will give the interviewee confidence that your organisation is committed to inclusive practices. Are there paper forms for people to read or sign throughout the recruitment process? Considering alternatives and sending information to the individual in an accessible format, such as Word, to read with their technology, for example, a screen reader. Moving on to slide 8, some frequently asked questions that we get asked all the time, and maybe some that when I acquired vision loss at 29, I had some of these questions myself. So let's answer some of those questions. It's okay to use vision-related words. For example, can you read this for me? Or using the word see, look, or watch. Don't be afraid to ask. It's okay to ask a person who's blind or vision impaired questions like, what language are you comfortable with regarding your vision? What supports do you need for this task? Is there anything we can do to make the process more accessible? What format is most accessible for you to access the information? When you meet someone with vision loss, please speak in a normal tone and speed at first interactions, and then adjust if required or requested. For example, if hearing loss was disclosed. A person who is blind or vision impaired may not see the visual cue of you leaving and continue talking, so it's helpful to indicate the end of a conversation before walking away. For example, thanks for that, Sally. I'm going to head back to my desk now. Don't make assumptions about someone's ability. There are people who are blind or vision impaired working in areas such as criminal or corporate law, psychology, teaching, CEOs of companies, information technology, digital forensics and cybersecurity, hospitality workers, or woodwork and furniture design. And these are just a few industries. So to end our session today, a key message to take away is necessary for some, good for all. The inclusive practices that we've discussed here are necessary for some people who are blind or vision impaired, but they're good for everyone. Sending information ahead of a meeting can be an inclusive practice for the whole team, and it's necessary for someone who is blind or vision impaired, and it's helpful for the whole team to be prepared for the upcoming meeting. And what I will say before I hand back over to Claire is everything that we've spoken about is general good practice, but I would like to say again, the most important thing is to ask the person and take a lead from that person, and being included in that conversation can mean so much to that person and really highlight your commitment to diversity and inclusion. So handing back over to you now, Claire.
Thanks so much, Maddie. So we're going to move on to slide 9 now. And we just want to talk to you a little bit about our program, An Eye to the Future, and all the things we can offer to you as employers to support you in creating or enhancing accessibility and inclusivity in your workplace and within your workforce. So as mentioned, our program really recognizes the career potential of people who are blind or vision impaired, including their unique skill sets, competencies, and general abilities. We work with and we support employers throughout Australia to remove barriers to employing someone who is blind or vision impaired. And we also mentor candidates into paid employment opportunities. Eye to the Future helps employers to meet their objectives around diversity and inclusion in the workplace, including supporting their workforce diversity. So our program can help you to attract, recruit, develop, and retain people who are blind or vision impaired in your workplace. We can help you to develop, maintain, and enhance your inclusive workplace practices. By building inclusive, accessible, and collaborative workplace cultures and processes that foster the talents of people who are blind or vision impaired with clear benefits to your workplace. And our program helps to support your measures and outcomes. So engaging in our education and support services helps to strengthen your workforce data and outcomes when working towards your objectives for diversity, equity, and inclusion within your organization. So moving to slide 10. So how do we do this? So for employers like you, we offer the following services, and these are all no-fee services for you. We offer targeted employment programs. So these are bite-sized training sessions that change perspectives and promote understanding of how to support the employment of people who are blind or vision impaired in your particular context. So think 15 minutes of easy to digest, highly practical strategies that you can put into effect straight away for those immediate successes. We can drop into your existing team meetings or create one at a time that suits you. And we can deliver a one-off targeted employment session, or we can deliver a whole series. We also offer professional development programs. So these are our series of informative workshops that provide strategies and pathways to enhance workplace cultures and processes for people who are blind or vision impaired. Our workshops often host guest speakers and offer opportunities to reimagine your approach to meeting your workplace inclusion strategy. Our services also include consulting and mentoring. So our team can work one-on-one with both job seekers and businesses or organizations to provide really specialized and tailored support along that employment journey. We also provide specialized online resources, which you can find on our website, including access to previous recorded events, which offer advice on how employers and recruiters can successfully employ a person who is blind or vision impaired. Just want to move on to slide 11 now. So we really just wanted to thank you for joining us today, and that does bring us to the end of our content.
That concludes today's webinar. You can find out more at itothefuture.com.au/home. An Eye to the Future is an initiative of Blind Citizens Australia, informing, connecting, and empowering Australians who are blind or vision impaired.